Hello, everyone, and welcome as we celebrate the release of HORRORific Tales Volume 2. I'm joined by our contributing authors who have helped to make this book come into being. Spend some time with us now as we discuss the creative process behind each story and get to know our writers. Well, folks, here we are. We have made it for another one.
Yay!
I have a sound effect for it and I will use it. Yep. Here we go. Volume 2. It's out. Bit chunkier than the last one.
Yay!
They're getting
It is,
chunkier.
it is.
Yeah. Oh, check that out. Promo. And I didn't train anybody. Look at that. Nobody was prompted to do that. Love it. No, but here we are. Second one. Hard to imagine, most of these sort of projects, they start off and they become like a blip and maybe get the first one out and then it falls apart or something happens. So I'm glad we got here, and I'm glad so many is we'll probably see people maybe jump in later. I think there's a few folks running behind. We'll add them on as they come in. But great to see you. I'll do a round robin then. I'll start with Eli. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Eli Beals. My contribution to Horrific Tales Volume 2 is titled Aina Benanar, the Island of the Bones. Fun ride.
Excellent. Dale, like you need an introduction.
Yeah, like, hi. Hi, I'm Del Gibson, and I did, what did I put in? A Deep Dark Sorrow and this anthology about a tiny far in Wellington Harbour. So, yeah.
And
Cool.
Anthony.
Hey, this is Anthony M. Caro here, and I contributed a Jersey Devil short story, Devil of a Time, back in November of '77, which is kind of satiric, and it was fun to write, and it was great to be part of the anthology.
And last but not least, Arthur. Sorry, I have a wee bit of a thing going on my throat. Just started there.
No worries, mate. Hey, everybody. My name's Guy. I write horror under the name Arthur L. So my contribution to this awesome anthology is called Salivating, Drooling Evil. So a bit of a cannibalistic sort of theme. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Excellent. I just love the fact they've got the whole range, like new people coming on board, people have been from the early days, people have arrived later on. You know, over the fifth year now of the podcast, I just love the fact that you have stayed with it and keep in touch. When I put one of these out or anything, that you are always ready to get involved, and it's fantastic.
It's cool to be part of it.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I was a bit dubious about this one because cryptids, it's everyone knows Bigfoot, everyone knows the Mothman, but it's not really like hauntings was easy, and that's everyone has a haunted house story, or everyone knows about Ouija boards or possessions, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? I think it's an easier topic. This one is not so much into the meat and bones, and there was the danger. Once again, that's what I worry about these, is that I'm going to get like 10 of the same story, but couldn't be further from the truth. Like, all of you pulled it out of the bag. Everything was different, and it didn't even have the prompt or say to anybody, and that's amazing. You know, I could get used to this and then get complacent, if that makes sense. If this is the way it's going to be each time.
Yeah, you have like 4 national stars with cryptids. You know, you have Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, and who would be the 4th that everybody knows about? Wow, I'm actually kind of stuck.
Skinwalkers, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Skinwalkers. I think they're pretty popular.
They're technically cryptids, but they're also the
Werewolves
go into their own. Yeah, sort of cross the line.
look try.
They almost have their own category.
Cryptids tend to be local. I mean, Bigfoot was a Pacific Northwest legend for like 12 years before it went national. 12 years, not 100, not 300. That started up in the late 50s. But most of your cryptids, like Ogopogo was Canadian, Lake Champlain monster. The Owlman was UK. Oscar the Beast of Bosco is a giant turtle nobody remembers. I can't remember where he was from. Mothman was West Virginia. That was local for a long time. Didn't become national for maybe 30 years. So yeah, they all start as local legends. Dogman, Michigan. So yeah, that's really where they spin. And if they're kind of cool enough and popular enough, they get caught up in the national news. But usually, no, they're mostly local.
Yeah, everyone feels free to jump in. Like, what was your first experience?
I've actually had quite a few people ask me what a cryptid is. People are actually quite confused about what they're asking me, what's a cryptid? And I'm like,
Okay.
What? Are you for real? It's a reasonably new name, I think. Oh. Hello, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Colin, you were saying something. Get tail.
Right. Yeah, you were saying people didn't understand what a cryptid actually was, and
yeah,
I suppose if you're not the zeitgeist of, like, we're all hardcore horror fans, and we all talk about it, and that's our whole thing. So I think we're used to looking things up and being aware. It's easy to forget that, like, general public or just general person that will, watch a movie or read a book now and again doesn't really go into the research. Maybe it's just because we're in a certain bubble and we're used to doing certain things. Do you think that's maybe why we might be surprised that people don't know?
Well, it was very cryptids. I guess you could say that it really started with the abominable snowman craze back in the 50s with Edmund Hillary. Cryptid, that comes from cryptozoology, I believe.
That became a term in itself, and that's what it's the argument is. Is it a pseudoscience or is it actually legitimized? That argument's still going on.
Well, cryptozoology is pretty much the study of unknown animals, and you get discoveries all the time. Sometimes they could be researching extinct animals, and or maybe I'm not 100% familiar with how legitimate cryptozoology works, but cryptids kind of became a spin-off of that. And I guess that's some of it. A lot of it is pseudoscience, folklore. That's where a lot of cryptids come from. A lot of cryptids come from hoaxes and pranks, and a lot of them are legends. Like the Jersey Devil is a classic example. The Jersey Devil really started out as a supernatural story, like a tale from the very early 18th century about a woman who had too many children, and one of them finally became a devil, and then it flew out a chimney and all that. It was kind of a cautionary tale about overpopulation or having too many kids in a very, very not too politically correct way. And it was always a local superstition for years and years and years and years. And then during the cryptoid boom of the 70s, the Jersey Devil kind of got mentioned in several of those books, and because I've seen the Jersey Devil, or I've spotted the Jersey Devil, or I've heard the Jersey Devil. So that was kind of a combination folklore, fairy tale, scare little kids, scare people story that morphed into a cryptid. So that's kind of where you get a lot of them.
Yeah, obviously, where I'm from, Nessie was always the big thing. That was the early photographs, and they even had documentaries where they go out with the trawler boats and the sonar, and they dropped it down. And then they discovered the trench that actually goes out into the North Sea, and they realized that, this thing could actually exist because it could go out and come back in. And they never, and apparently it was too deep and too wide, so they couldn't put permanent sonar down, to track it coming in and out conveniently enough.
It took them about 50 years to find. The story about Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, the Billy Wilder movie. Yeah, it had a scene with the Loch Ness monster and had a robot, and the robot sunk in Loch Ness, and it was there for 50 years. They finally found the robot at the bottom. Yeah,
I don't think people realize how big that is. That body of water.
Huge.
And it's very murky and dark and stuff, isn't there?
Well, it's deep, and it's
no
like I said, it's a channel in the North Sea, and it's like any body of water. You know, it's over here. Believe it or not, we're an island nation, and with some of the roughest seas on the planet, like the Irish Sea and the North Sea, and that are some of the worst for shipping. Like they tried to run the catamarans, you know, the huge catamarans, and they can only be run during the summer, and then they had to just stop them altogether just because it's too dangerous.
Yeah,
the thing they couldn't run them,
Yeah.
and it's only like 30 miles. You know, like the Irish Sea, for example, is only like 30 miles across, and yet there's more ships downed and yachts capsized, and people think, "Oh, I'll have a go at that," and yeah, just where to go. And the North Sea, you can't work in the rigs out there without like, proper survival training. It's not like you just go in the drink. It's like Arctic temperatures and like strong under. I mean, you go in there and you're gone. You know, there's no messing about. So it's that sort of environment, I think, breeds tales, breeds folklore.
oh yeah.
It's just a shame, I think, that we don't embrace it. Like, it seems to have all been brushed under the carpet. And all we're getting is just, let's tell us the same Hollywood franchise over 10 times instead of, oh, here's an idea. Let's make a movie about, you know, local tales and bring them to life. I don't understand why there's enough material out there, especially when I start researching for this.
Do you have I was just going to ask you, Colin, do you have much on the in the way of, you know, the legend of the Kraken and stuff like that coming around?
Actually, the story I was going to write was featuring a creature called the Kelpie. It's a mythical horse, which is a pixie. It transforms into a horse. People get on its back, and then actually just drags him into the water. I think it was originally from like Sea Lands or something. It was, you know, people saw one of them, and the legend came into being. But the story, I just couldn't get the story to work. And I was using a different location, you know, back home, it's known as Bloody Bridge in the mornings, because I used to go up there all the time. So I could just picture, you know, I had the picture of the place, but I just could not get the story to work for love nor money. So I had to like just scrap it and change text. But I was finding loads of local stories, and maybe not as massive. Like the Kraken's a huge thing. I don't think regionally we think in that scale. Our creatures are always smaller but more deadly, like the Guriak, which I wrote about. You know, it's not about being massive. Maybe it's the island mentality that we don't do that. But there's loads and loads and loads of folklore about various creatures, but it's all been swept under the rug. You have to go searching. It's not in common knowledge.
Yeah.
They're not told to people anymore. They're not read out in schools. They're not, you know, put into the culture, which I think's sad.
The big cryptid boom was the 70s, and that is a pre-technology era. And a movie that I love. I mean, the TV commercials, you know, blew me away as a little kid. It was The Mysterious Monsters by Sun Classics Pictures, which was quintessential Bigfoot documentary, theatrical one. But just rushing through the history, Rod Serling hosted a documentary on television about 1971, and it was a David L. Wolper production. And Wolper was bored. He had very successful producer, done a lot of great stuff. You know, later went on to do miniseries like Winds of War and all that. And he wanted to do a Bigfoot special, Loch Ness Monster special, and they told him, they chased him out. They said it was insane. Nobody would watch it. Nobody would care. It was stupid. But he was Wolper, and he insisted. And they kind of said, well, you know, he makes us a lot of money, so we'll just we'll humor him. And the documentary aired on TV. It shattered viewership records, and that really helped instill. It helped bring a mainstream recognition of a lot of these monsters. Before that, the Argosy magazine, which was a men's magazine, would write about Bigfoot. They would run the Patterson Gimlin footage, still pictures, and then some of the footage from that documentary found its way into Mysterious Monsters, which was a lot of those movies were cheap. You never got to see Bigfoot because it usually looked really bad, so they kind of hid it. Mysterious Monsters, it was like right in front of you. There was just one scene of a Bigfoot after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, and I remember the TV commercials. The TV commercials had these people in this old cabin, and they hear a noise, and they run to the door, and they open the door to see what's there. And they open the door, and on TV you could see it was right in front of you, a guy in a Bigfoot suit, and it was just like, whoa, it jarred you. And then they would cut to the now playing at the Duke and Duchess or whatever, and that went on to make a lot of. Sun Classics made a lot of money with everything they did, like. Searching Noah's Ark, the Lincoln Conspiracy, they just made a fortune. But that really boosted consciousness, and a lot of the fans were kids. So you got a lot of books written for kids, and one of the other benefits of these type of documentaries and TV shows was they kind of boosted local interest. So what would happen was if you lived in Maryland and you watch the Mysterious Monsters or whatever on TV or in the theater, not too long after that, people would start reporting sightings. So, it kind of as the consciousness was raised in areas where you didn't have cryptids, all of a sudden people would start seeing them, because a lot of people, to be honest, when an animal sneaks up on you and you're not expecting it, and it's dark and it's shadowy and you only catch a brief glimpse of it, your mind runs away with you, like, what did I see? And sometimes that turns into a sighting that gets reported. But in the 70s, like Mysterious Monsters had that, that really cool advertising tagline, like, there are mysterious creatures. Are there unknown creatures living at the edge of civilization? And it had that wonderful poster with the Bigfoot with its back turned to the audience walking away. And it was really, really, really out there. It was really cool. What happened was, back in those days, you didn't have digital, you didn't have iPhones, you didn't have any of that. You were stuck with Polaroids and 16 millimeter film and very, by today's standard, very primitive. None of that stuff would be great for trying to capture an animal unless you really, really knew what you were doing.
Well, so even trail cams today would debunk most stuff anyway. If you've seen the quality of even night vision, not that horrible green stuff you see, but I mean the actual proper black and white, thermal, you see with trail cams, they're amazing things.
Yeah, it's because of that, it kind of diminishes it, and also.
But you don't think, is that not where imagination comes in?
Yes,
that's always my argument. We have this sort of notion in general that everything's been done. That's it. Imagination over. Give up. Just take the corporate slop. Just, let's reboot, rehash, remake because we can't do anything new. And I would argue against that. I say we've loads left in the tank. We've always got our imaginations. All we have to do now is just tweak.
Yeah, you can always find technology. Always get an original.
Like, your story, you went into Norse mythology. However, your story could be relevant. Your story could have been written today. It could have been set 100 years ago. It could be set 100 years in the future. Because even with technology, your story is still relevant. The idea of being stranded or something that doesn't get picked up by satellite, or the experience, somebody coming, after being shipwrecked. Are they just rambling, or is there something in it? What was your sort of thoughts? Were you looking locally first of all, and what drove you towards that sort of, to go that direction?
I don't know. That was like the first thing that kind of landed on. I was looking for obscure cryptids and kind of like gravitated towards, the Norse ones. I saw that and I was like, yes. And everything else kind of evaporated. Really, because I think what do they say? They say write what you know for general fiction, but horror writers write what scares you. And so, like, yeah, I have a touch of thalassophobia, and just being out in the water, being stranded and alone is just kind of isolating and terrifying. And if there was a being that sort of like imposed that'd be it.
Yeah, and I suppose you're playing the idea of it's a safe haven, but it's not really. It's actually a trap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of little things that it implies, and I just just the idea that there are these huge undiscovered creatures out there in the water. It's still not outside of the realm of possibility. There could be anything out there. Now we're constantly discovering new life in the ocean, and largely it's unexplored.
Yeah, because that was one of my next questions. Actually, are still once again, it's back to this silly attitude of we know everything, we've done it all, that's it, we're at the pinnacle, there's nowhere left to go. But there are still unexplored regions of the world, even not even the ocean, but land masses as well. There's still places we haven't been or been able to. The drone can't fly far enough, or the satellite can't pick it up because the forest is too dense. There's loads of reasons why. Have people forgotten that sense of wonderment?
Seems so.
Well, like
I think it's turned into a niche market, really. It's not something that lots of people are interested in. I think because Bigfoot might have put people off, I don't know. It's just that monsters and cryptids and all that sort of stuff really, I guess, unless you're really into it, it can fall short of making a good story, if you know what I mean. So you getting this together as a anthology was a really good idea, because then people get to see all the other different types of cryptids around the world that other people haven't heard of.
That's the thing. This one's blown up compared to. I thought the first one would have done a lot better, and this might have been a difficult one to follow up with. But really, people really have latched on this one, and I'm impressed. Because I'm just going by. My thought behind these is I've got 10 volumes plotted out, what I want for the first 10 volumes, and it's just ideas of horror. Certain themes I want to explore myself and see different stories on. Not really. I'm not even doing market research, if that makes sense. It's just I'm sort of going, yeah, that's a good idea. I want to do a story on that, or I want to read stories about that. Yeah, I haven't seen much of that lately. Let's have a go at it. That's sort of my thought. I'm not even going, oh, well, the marketing team have done this survey, and number one will be blah, blah, blah. I don't do any of that nonsense. You know what I mean? Maybe I should, but hey, I prefer. I like the way I do things.
Yeah, cryptids have their market. I mean, like again, going back to the 70s, that was you had a lot of books. You had board games. I remember the famous back 77. They sold plastic Bigfoot feet that you could attach to your boots. So
I remember those.
Yeah, you were trudging in the snow. I think that was a K-Tel. Was that K-Tel put that out? I can't remember.
Should have become slippers now. You know what I mean? I think I was the precursor for the slippers that are made out of
that had to be the worst thing anybody could ever come up with, because I guarantee you, man, I mean, people were probably taking that prank to the extreme, putting Bigfoot footprints outside people's windows and all that.
As you would, as I might have done myself, maybe.
On Google Earth, actually, you can find sightings, the spots where all the Bigfoot sightings are. So that's quite interesting if you want to go along and have a look at that.
What's funny is,
I think you have to pay for that. But
yeah. No, unfortunately, Justine, unless she pops in, she's the one that wrote the Bigfoot story. And but the thing is, she took it the other direction. You know what I mean? It's from Bigfoot's Sasquatch's perspective, and sort of ancient tribal,
Brilliant story.
callings and a sense of
Mhm.
loss. I think it was a really emotional story. I loved it. But
Yeah, it was.
I was
yeah.
expecting, honestly, the way we're even talking now, I was expecting 20 Bigfoot stories, and it didn't get. Every one of you brought something different. First time round, I didn't have to prompt or anything or say enough of those. That was great.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a Bigfoot
Awesome.
story. Then it dawned on me that I relocated back to New Jersey because I'm from Philadelphia. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I got to do the Jersey Devil because I'm probably the only person who would even think of that because that's a super local
Mhm.
legend. That's a very, very niche one, so to speak. But yeah, Bigfoot, the only three, like I say, only three national ones are Bigfoot, Abominable Snowman, and Bigfoot, of course, is the
The
Abominable
Abominable
Snowman.
Snowman was more Tibet, wasn't it? More
The
Asian.
the Abominable Snowman was, again, that really was the one that kind of started it, where you had this mysterious tale of a mysterious creature. Originally, it was kind of, they kind of pushed it as an undiscovered ape. Ivan T. Sanderson, he wrote a really popular book called Abominable Snowman, Legend Come to Life. And Sanderson pressed the idea that this might have been an ape that was undiscovered of some kind. And then when you had the Hammer movie, The Abominable Snowman, that kind of spread the legend.
Mhm.
And the Edmund Hillary expedition was taken very seriously. And then later on in the 50s, it kind of started to, it spread, and you kind of got it. Well, there were always legends of mysterious creatures, and some of them became Bigfoot stories later, like something like a story about a mysterious whatever from 1890, 1830 would then get rewritten as a Bigfoot story, which happens a lot with folklore. You'll see it over the years. You'll see the same story morph into something more contemporary, because Bigfoot and most cryptids are friend of a friend tales. That's
Yeah.
pretty much, especially, again, you got to remember, this is all very 19th century, 20th century. Like, once you get modern technology, it undermines the mysterious element. Like, is it out there? Can we find it? Well, yeah, because you're limited. You don't have. I mean, I'm talking back in the past when this stuff was, during the boom period of the 70s. You didn't have technology or any way of really proving it. Today, you kind of really got to really suspend disbelief to buy into some of these stories, or how some of these sightings were never captured on film, or they were never captured on an iPhone, or
But that, once again, that's
Yeah,
down
that's
to
interesting too. Well,
but a lot of times when you watch
like,
some of
what I like about, oh, sorry,
Yeah,
carry on.
some of the footage today,
Oh no,
it
it's just
when you see like a Bigfoot in a Bigfoot or a creature, you can tell it's a guy in a suit because the quality of the video image is so clear. It wasn't like that
see the zip.
with film
See the
camera.
Velcro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Del, go ahead.
Well, what I really like about some of these cryptids, especially like Bigfoot, is that they tend to be like interdimensional, sort of, that in another dimension, which is supposedly one of the explanations for why we haven't got any clear footage of Bigfoot as such. He seems to, the videos that I have actually seen, he seems to morph in and out of frame, if you know what I mean, when they've taken photos and videos, trail cam footage as well. He seems to like come in and out of the dimension, which is really, really fascinating. I really love that part about cryptids, is the supernatural sort of aspect of it, of where's it going, which dimension is it living in? It's in another realm. It's just really fascinating. I think that's my favorite part about Bigfoot in particular. So
But you did something interesting, Guy. You took what was an urban legend and you took it to the rainforests. What informed that choice? Because you're mainly sort of sci-fi horror, aren't you? That's your sort of focus, is sci-fi horror. And
yeah, I've done a bit of sci-fi and a bit of I don't know, touched on a little bit of everything. Yeah, but yeah, I do like the old sci-fi sort of horror. I'm not sure exactly what inspired me, but I think one thing that definitely did was a book that scared the pants off me when I was a kid. It's called Hatu Patu and the Bird Woman,
Mhm.
and I think the author's name is Roger Bacon. And this book terrified me. It was kind of a big sort of A4 sized and very short book. You could read it in 10 minutes, but it was done in watercolors. And it was about this old Maori village and this little kid, Hatu Patu. And the way it was painted in these old school watercolors or paintings, whatever, it was so brutally violent for a little 8-year-old kid. See, and I remember hiding the book somewhere in my parents' place because I didn't ever want to sort of look at it, but I still got some kind of exhilaration out of it. So for writing the story in this book, I called the kid Hatu Patu. And I'm not sure how or why the idea sort of got in there, but yeah, I like the idea of the Mothman, people with wings flying. I didn't really know anything about it, so I've got no idea if the original one was just one sort of Mothman or whether there was a whole group of them. So I just
it's the Midwest, isn't it? It's Midwest USA.
Which
I
one?
think so. Yeah, I remember
The
hearing
Mothman,
it was
Mothman, West Virginia.
yeah.
West Virginia. Okay.
Yeah, I did
Where's that?
Google
West
it.
Virginia. Yeah.
Where's that?
I
Point
did Google
Pleasant.
it. It was around.
Yep. But whereabouts that? And is it east side, west side, in the middle,
Southeast?
south? Right. Okay.
Southeast.
Yeah.
Just spelled out for us foreigners. It's like
Yeah.
big. We'll do the sort of main bits. Once you get in the middle, it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a big coal mining region.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have a reprint of the old newspaper articles about Mothman. I remember Mothman kind of
Wow.
Yeah, they sold it as a commemorative, like when the movie came out. I think Mothman Prophecies. Yeah, man, I first heard of Mothman. What happened was a lot of scholastic books, a lot of books for little kids in the 70s and the 80s were collections of cryptid stories. Like Bigfoot All Across the Country was a really cool book for kids. It showed Bigfoot in every 48 out of 50 states had Bigfoot sightings. Colorado didn't, and Alaska didn't. But the book was packed with all these sightings, and some of them were collections that kind of Bigfoot would be on the cover, but they would have other monsters in there. And I remember when I first read about Mothman, he was basically just a weird flying Bigfoot. And over the years, he kind of got tied in with Men in Black and UFOs and all these other things. So, yeah, but like sometimes they just put a unique spin on a local legend or like you would get like bog monsters like out in the swamps in Louisiana, and you would get like in Florida, you had the skunk ape, which was kind of a variation on Bigfoot, and then Mothman being West Virginia. And I think the craziest one was the Bray Road Beast, which I'm trying to remember. I think that was Wisconsin werewolf. I remember I was in like a barber shop. I was reading like this tabloid newspaper for it was like 81, 82. And it was a reporter on a Brazilian werewolf, like about this werewolf that was attacking people in Brazil. And it was like, what? But this story actually got carried into more mainstream news reports. And lo and behold, before you knew it, a werewolf started showing up in Wisconsin, and that kind of morphed into its own little local legend. And then it spread to Michigan, where they changed into the Dog Man. So you kind of get these oddball, I guess, B and C grade, cryptids that they become really hot on the local level, and then sometimes it gets so weird that national stories will pick it up. And but in the old days, it was in these collections, these book collections for kids, and the occasional newspaper or news magazine report. Because you got to go back to Walper. that stuff made money. It drew ratings. So taking a cryptid and putting it in a book or in a newspaper article or a special, like I remember Unsolved Mysteries did a, it was usually, it was a fairly serious show, but then they they would occasionally do like a Bigfoot special, not a special, but like a little piece on Bigfoot or someone talking about how they saw Bigfoot. So it would perk readers, it would perk viewers, it would sell books, and you can't do Bigfoot all the time. So if there's a different local legend, it'll spread. It's like Mothman was like the late '60s, but unless you were a hardcore fan, you never heard of it until the Mothman prophecies came out, and that kind of really spread the myth.
That was the thing as well, because the Mothman, what they added for that was the Mothman was a herald for disaster. So the Mothman would always like appear or something, and then it would be like a foretelling of a disaster about to come. It was attractive.
Disaster.
That was the thing that was brought into it. That
I vaguely remember
the movie.
In the 1960s, there was some kind of disaster, a bridge disaster in West Virginia or something like that.
Bridge.
And I think it got tied with the Mothman sightings, and then it spun from there. That's what happens with a lot of the stories. They start and then they expand over time.
Yeah, but that's what we need more of. What's happening today is stories are contracting. It's just all becoming the one story and it's just getting repeated. And this idea of taking an idea, spinning it out there, and it doesn't have to be mainstream. It doesn't have to be mainstream to be interesting. That's my problem at the moment with creativity in general. It's just everyone, unless it's a mainstream idea that everybody knows about, like somehow it's not valid. And I love the idea of quirky stories set in a locale that I've never even heard of, or a little town that I couldn't find on the map. But the character has become so ingrained in the culture, and it's as much, and this is what I like about the idea of crypt as well, that it's not so much about the creature, but the locale, the mindset behind the people, how that legend interwove with the culture and how it became their thing. What rituals do they take part in? And I just mean something like a certain nights of the week they all draw the blinds a bit early, or they light a candle. You know what I mean? Silly little things like that that's how legends come into being. And I miss the fact that we've lost that. We don't have to believe it, but sometimes it's fun to ritualize and have a little thing, and it's only for your locale. Only yous will know about it. And if somebody visited you, why do you do that thing? Well, back in the day, we believed, but we still do it, and that's what gives that little place its uniqueness. Everything is becoming so homogenized now. You go down any high street in the same 10 bloody chain stores, and it's boring. What's the point in going anywhere? What's the point in visiting anywhere? What's the point in looking up anywhere? It becomes irrelevant, and I think it's sad.
I think when I was a little kid, California, Northern California, Oregon, British Columbia. I mean, that could have been Mars. I mean, the only thing you saw was pictures of it in a book or a clip of it on TV. If it happened to air on TV that day. I mean, today I can watch a live stream of anything, of any square inch of the entire globe. So back in the old days when the world was, the world's the same size, but mass media and communication and technology was limited. So something that was, like West Virginia, I could drive from Philadelphia to West Virginia. I could get there in 6-7 hours, just drive. But it might as well have been 100 million miles away back in the 80s because you had no connection to it other than a telephone or the television or something you saw in a magazine. Now today that mass media makes everything accessible. It's right there. It's in front of you. That's not. I shouldn't say it's not good for spreading legends, but it's going to spread more urban legends. Like something like the hippie babysitter, those type of tales. Those are a bit more, more believable. Things that are more mysterious or otherworldly, it gets diminished, and it gets diminished with technology. And when
No,
it
but
comes,
you can still tell the story as a folklore tale back in the
it doesn't
day. But
it doesn't grab people like it used to, because in the old days you couldn't, you only had friend of a friend, you only had somebody telling you a story. There was no way to go run on Google and confirm it, or listen to 73 counterpoints or counter arguments.
so
That's
you're saying
basically
people don't enjoy stories anymore just for the
they
sake of
do.
stories?
They do, but it's a different kind of story. It's got to be something that'll grab them. That's more plausible. I shouldn't. I mean, I'm not
Oh,
talking
so
about.
we'll have them. We'll just introduce every first chapter will be the most boring horror trope ever. Is they go in and their phone battery runs out or they can't get signal. Crack on.
Yeah,
They're just strange wave that knocks out the satellites. That's the first line of every story, right? And then the next line should be, now you have permission to suspend disbelief. Carry on. Go on with the
that's why.
story. Is that how people need to be primed? Are people really that crap, and basic?
That's why I said a lot of my stories in the past, because I can evade all I can evade all the logic issues that you come up with today. I just go backwards to before any of that stuff was invented. But yeah, it's just like trying to get somebody into a trying to get mainstream people into a believing into a mysterious monster type tale. It's harder today, but you can dust off urban legends from 40, 50 years ago, and they're still, and pawn them off like they just happened last week, and people will buy into an urban legend a bit more because they tend to be plausible, even a little over the top or ridiculous, oh my gosh, what's the oh god, this is a gross urban legend, but it's a story about the parents who have the baby in the high chair, and they're running late, they got to leave, they got to catch an airplane, and the babysitter's on the way, and they're like, the babysitter's like, well, I'll be there in 5 minutes, don't worry, just go, I have the key, yada yada yada. So the parents go out, they go on vacation, and the babysitter dies in a car wreck, and the kid is their kid starves to death because the babysitter never shows up, and they never find out about this until they get back home. So that was an old 70s urban legend, and you could tweak that into something a little bit more believable today. Although I'm sure there are logic flaws, that you could come up with, but people don't analyze them that quickly. So that's kind of what you get more of today, rather than an overt monster.
Quite a bit. So I'm all about, I know logic flaws, but if I have a good story, I'll forgive a lot. That's my thing. If I have a good story and I'm engaged in the story and I'm engaged in the characters, I am prepared to let a lot of things slide. It's when I'm not enjoying myself is where I start digging. You all know that. I think it's been on with me before. Know that there. Have I lost Eva? Did I say? Oh, I thought I'd frozen her for a second. Oh right, no, I thought Eli had frozen. The camera had not about well, connection there. But you know what I mean.
Just not moving.
tell me a good story, and I will forgive a lot, especially in the horror genre. You know what I mean? If you've got me on board,
Yeah.
and they're like it's when the story isn't good, I start digging. But I don't know. I don't want to believe. Maybe it's my own stubbornness. I don't want to believe that storytelling's dead. I don't want to believe that all we've got left is the next requel, prequel, reboot, rehash, regurgitation of the same 10 properties over and over again ad infinitum. That is a depressing future. It really is.
Yeah.
And also,
Pretty much.
unless something's a trend, you can't create, you can't write, unless it's the cool thing for right now. Like when we talked about Freddy Krueger, the MTV culture. You know what I mean? Does everything have to be the MTV culture just to be able to tell stories? Storytelling is the fundamentals of humanity. That's what makes us human. And I feel like we're being separated from storytelling. And I want to dig my heels in and say, no more. Let's bloody keep going.
Well, in the movie sphere and the TV sphere, you're going to get a lot of rehash because you're going to get a lot of. They think of everything in terms of intellectual property or dusting off something that made money in the past. They
I
figure
know
it'll
they're
make
crap.
money.
They're horrible people, run it.
It's
The worst
a lot
people
of it.
run the, you know, I mean, the worst people are in charge of the creative process. It's like how the two anything ever gets made is just that's a mystery.
Well, because they're marketing people, they know how to make. I mean, they're able to make money off of it. They have an eye for the bottom line. Myself personally, if you're looking for something unique and original or creative, I mean, podcasts are a place to go. Like a lot of audio theater, you see a lot of really cool stuff. Uh, outside of outside of the literary realm, again, podcasting can be just audio only, but you can get some really cool radio theater type productions. When you turn to like, your late night cable TV stuff, yeah, you're going to get a lot of rehash because they're just rehashing the same thing for the same, that same audience that just keeps coming back as a routine, or just they take something that did well 20 years ago and figure that this will catch with the mainstream or whatever. So they reboot something successful. And that's just a cash grab. That's a business approach to it. That's
fair enough for that realm, but it just, like I said, storytelling isn't dead. You'd think it was just by looking at the mainstream. You'd think it was over.
Yeah, they just don't want to green light stuff that they're not confident that it'll make money for them.
Because proof is actually this volume. There's been genuine excitement for it, and
I think
it's been popping
people
up in
are
posts and
really loving. Yeah, they're actually really loving anthologies a bit more than, say, a novel as such. I think our attention span has sort of diminished over the years. I've noticed that a lot more people are buying into anthologies and submitting stories to anthologies because people get to get a taste of every author. Say if there's 100 authors, everybody gets to see a little taste of their work, and then if they like their work, that story, they can go on and do what you did, which is putting the QR code thing on there. That's a really good idea. I haven't seen that in any other anthologies. I think that's fantastic. So I think that you'll find that this one will be a little bit possibly more popular than, say, the hauntings, because I think people are getting a little bit sick of haunted houses, haunted cabins, haunted this, haunted that, and cryptids can be very fascinating, especially if you've got ones that people don't know about, like, say, the Taniwha in New Zealand. Lots of different other ones, the Yowie in Australia, the Chupacabra in, where's that? South America or something. So I think that's why this is worked out so well.
I thought it would have been the other way around. I
we've all
thought
got
hauntings
different
would have been like,
stories in there.
going by what Anthony says,
Yeah.
that's the more mainstream. That's what people know about. I thought that's the one would have picked up, but it's not. It's this one. The all the weird stuff that maybe people don't even know what cryptid means, like most of the time, and yet.
Exactly.
I'm seeing this thing, every day there's sales, and I'm not. I stopped the Facebook ad for it because it wasn't doing anything. So,
wow.
Well,
for the first one, for the first one,
sales have been down across the board for.
No, but this one's still going. This is going much better than
cool.
Volume 1. That's what I'm saying.
I
was expected to be the other way around. I thought more people. Hauntings. I know what I like a haunting story. I would have been still picking that one up, but no, it's this one, the weird one that I wasn't too sure about, is really taken off, and I'm like, okay.
Cryptids in print have a long history of selling. There's always a book coming out on them, something, either fiction, nonfiction, or whatever. A cryptid is a monster, and monsters mean action, and that as opposed to hauntings, which is ghosts, which is more cerebral, more atmospheric. Ghosts are spectral. They can't grab you by the throat or grab you by the feet and bang you against the wall, but Bigfoot can. So you get more action. You get more,
True.
depending upon the type of monster, you also get a little bit of, splatterpunk, claws, teeth, and all that. And so it's like I said, monsters are going to be more action. Spectral things are going to be more cerebral. So action probably going to sell a bit more because I want to use the word pulp, but that it's not printed on paper anymore. It's all digital. So, but digital.
Well, still, I mean, that's one thing. If I wasn't able to do these in physical copies, I wouldn't have wanted to do it. If I was just creating a digital product, I wouldn't have been interested. I wanted, my whole thing is I want something physical. I want a manifestation of the idea. I want the cerebral brought real. Somebody can hold it in their hands. And honestly, the paperback, that's most of the sales are paperback. People are buying books, and
really?
like I said, I'm just really happy.
Wow.
That's there's the KMP reads, but it's a paperback every day. There's paperbacks being bought, and I'm like,
wow,
I'm really happy. This is the one I wasn't sure about, if that makes sense. The subject matter, the idea, and yet there's still something there, is basically what I'm trying to say. We sort of write it off. We write off local stories. Everything has to be a national phenomena, a worldwide phenomena. It has to be in the mainstream. I still believe that there's a craving for unique little stories, and that's especially in the horror genre. We're the ones that actively go and look for the random tribe in the top of the hill to see what their horror story is. Other people virtue signal about we include everybody. The horror genre is the only one that actually does it, because we just have that fascination with, what's your scary story? Oh, right. What's your demon? Oh, is that what it is? Oh, right. If you meet somebody from anywhere in the world and they tell you a local legend or what their local what their demon, you're best friends, aren't you? Instantly.
Yeah,
because it's cool stuff.
That's the way we're wired as horror fans. We'll love it.
Cryptids are fun. 99% of them are they're harmless. They never. You don't really hear about too many, unless you're talking about a Wendigo. You don't really hear too many tales of a cryptid hurting anybody. So people dig them. They love them.
And they're Skinwalker.
Yeah, they're fun.
Wendigo's not quite.
It's a Navajo curse.
Yeah, it's based off cannibalism.
I think you can. Yeah.
The way I was taught, the Wendigo stories I were taught were basically a Sasquatch that eats flesh, but the origin of a Wendigo, I think it was more spiritual.
Yeah,
so it's another one of those. Yeah, it's another one of those issues where something morphs into something else. Like it might have had a different origin. It did have a different origin, and then it becomes a Bigfoot in certain.
Hold on, I'll give Cameron a call. Because he's Navajo, so it's like I'll give Cameron a call and get him on. Right, explain again. What was it? When we covered like I was going to say about favorite cryptid movie, that there, and that's actually one of my favorite ones is Antlers. If you've seen that.
Antlers, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Grim. Honestly, it's one that it's not often a movie haunts me and gets in here, but like The Witch,
not my favorite.
The Witch still gets in here. It's one of them movies. It doesn't matter how many times you watch it. And Antlers is one of those. Just the story of the town, the deprivation, the young kids involved, and
I love that atmospheric. Yeah, I love it.
Did you ever see Shriek of the Mutilated?
Don't believe so.
No, you're lucky. It came out in '74. If you want to see the worst Bigfoot costume ever, it's worth checking out just for that.
I don't know, because the Hammer's Abominable Snowman was up there. Good thing they had them in the shadows, because when we got the full face reveal, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, a lot of those costumes are best hidden.
Yeah. That's what they did brilliantly with Dog Soldiers. They kept the werewolves, in the shadows and used the mist. And even when they got the full reveal, they were still not quite there. It was all done in shadow, and it was great.
Yeah, that was a cool movie. Those were cool werewolves too.
Yep. That's what I mean. But it was more the camera work and hide them in the shadows and so forth, and story. But there's something, if I had been written in a book
Mhm.
and not a movie, I'd have enjoyed it. Just the whole premise behind it.
Yep.
You mean like
Well, you have a
special
British Army
ops?
patrol get sent into the
Oh,
hills
yeah.
to die because one of them went for selection and got pissed off the instructor. And it was a revenge story, and then it went wrong.
Yeah, it's your special ops meet monsters. That's a kind of a cool little subgenre that Predator really probably was the one that really
Oh,
blew that subgenre wide
Yeah.
open, but it had been around years before.
After all, sure, Aliens is the same, you know.
Yeah, it's just
Mm.
it's your tactical special ops team versus mysterious whatever.
There you go. It's still in the bloody. I don't mean this to be an argument,
It's
but I'm like, at the
brilliant.
same time, there's everyone, all the cool gadgets and gizmos, but skin slightly different. Oh, you use the terrain. Oh, it's masked. The satellite can't quite pick it up. Oh, it always manages to just be outside of the frame with the satellites trying to catch up. I mean, you just have to be a bit clever, and work around it. And
It's hard to make.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a story like that boring because there's just a lot of action. So people dig it. They already know what they're getting. So they if you dig it, you're probably unless the person really screws that story up or screws that movie up. I mean, people are going to like it because they're just got to give them action, and something spin something different.
Yeah, well, there's another example. I know it's more supernatural, but Deadstream, if you've seen that.
Which one?
Deadstream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. It's about a streamer and it's a comedy horror, right?
Mhm.
But the guy's your typical influencer, oh my god, people, for 10 more likes, I'll stay in this haunted house all night, and sets up all the cameras. So the cameras are everywhere. It's live streaming, the comments are going, and then you got the big bad appears, and the way it's done is oh yes, the way that reveal's done is fantastic, and just the way that descends.
Wow.
But it's all streamed live,
Cool.
That's cool.
You can still do it.
Is it a little like those
Okay.
Paranormal Activity video
It's
movies?
much better. It's done like a parody,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it's not the shitty night cam, that they do for that. It's actually proper, like this. Like it's all sitting here and something something happening. You know what influencer like when they set up all the cameras to go and do their stunts? It's that.
Yeah.
And it's just done so brilliantly.
Cool.
I mean, there's still story, and that's not
I'll have to
once
watch
again, that's
it.
not a well-known. Maybe it shouldn't get to the mainstream, but something like that should have a cult following because it's great.
Sometimes it takes a little while, but word of mouth will spread. And if it's cool, it could find a bigger audience in time. But it's just the market's so glutted; it's hard for something to stand out.
But with that,
that's
flooded
true.
market, homogenization, corporate, slop getting thrown everywhere. How important is it for folks to delve into their local areas to see what stories are there? Just as an interest factor, what are your local legends? Is that important still today?
Well, I think once you leave high school, you don't really have anybody prompting that. Things are not local like they used to be because you can just tap into anything. If you live in a quiet little sleepy town and you could just pop on the internet and you could see how things are going on. In some
But that's what I
big
mean. In antithesis to that, should people consciously look for stories in their local area? Should that be something that people should spend some time doing? Is it a worthwhile exercise? If for nothing else, but for local interest, and here's where I'm from, here's what we're known for, just for that bit of self-pride, which I think's sort of gone now.
Yeah, you don't really, I remember when I was like I said, I was a little kid. We used to have that called the Northeast Times because I lived in Northeast Philadelphia, and Northeast Times was just the Northeast neighborhood. It was a weekly newspaper that covered everything local, and you got some cool stuff in there that would not make the citywide paper, but again, you would read the Northeast Times routinely because that was how many we had 3 newspapers in the city of Philadelphia. Actually, had more, but like city newspaper in Center City, but we didn't read that in the Northeast unless we went to Center City. But today, again, mass media, internet, all that, it really, it's hard for local stuff to compete because if you have a local story and you have another local story 1,000 miles away that's more interesting, you're going to gravitate to the more interesting one. And when you
Feel
have
free
the
to jump
whole
in, folks, by the way, as well. Don't be shy. You just have a different perspective on it.
Yeah. So New Zealand. We're a very relatively young country, so we really don't have many cryptids as such. Okay, so when I grew up knowing about the taniwha. That's about it. And until I started my horror group back in 2021, I actually had not even bothered to look up local legends in New Zealand because I just thought, well, there wouldn't be any there. There'd only be the taniwha. But I've since found out there's like a goat man. There's also the mohoi man or something. There's also, because a lot of them are Māori traditional type of creatures or myths. So the taniwha can be seen as two different, a kaitiaki, which is a guide, a guardian, and it can also be a harbinger of bad stuff about to happen, a war, a death, whatever. And even that, I mean, Māori language was banned over here. You weren't allowed to speak it in schools. You weren't allowed to speak. You weren't allowed to talk it. You just did not even tell anybody you're Māori. They would just know by your skin color because we were basically, we were told we weren't allowed to practice our culture and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of stuff just been forgotten because it hasn't been talked about, and then now it's coming back into the zeitgeist a little bit, but really we only still I don't know, you can help me with this, Arthur, I'm not too sure, but as far as I know, the taniwha is the big one, and that's the one that's why I chose to write about the taniwha being in Wellington Harbour, because apparently, according to Māori tradition, Wellington Harbour was actually made by 2 taniwhas that went into and dug out the basin, which makes up the whole of Wellington Harbour, and also the Hokianga up north as well, and Wairoa. They've all got different taniwhas. So different iwi or tribes, they have different takes on the taniwha itself. So you can generalize it as say a cryptid that disguises itself as a piece of wood, as a shark, as a whale. And so because of what we've been doing, Colin and I have been doing we've been reviewing this TV series, Wellington Paranormal. Anyway, it's freaking
That's
awesome.
where I thought you got the idea
There was
from
a
when we did that
taniwha.
episode, because that was
That's
brilliant,
where I
that
got.
episode.
That's exactly where I got it from. That's exactly where I got it from. I thought I'd carry on from Wellington Paranormal. I'll bring that taniwha back into my story, and I'll use it. And so I turned it into a murder mystery sort of thing. So yeah, I suppose every country has like lots of different things. But I think what's happening is that media is making them a lot more popular.
Did you say you had a goat man? A goat man story?
Yeah, a goat. I haven't actually. I have written about the goat man. I have. I forgot. Yes, we've got a goat man as well. Yes.
Now, is that a satyr
over there?
A satyr type character?
I'm not. So apparently it's a man with goat feet, like like the.
It was like a fawn or something.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, almost like something like that. Yeah, I don't know much about it. I invented it myself, so I changed the lore of the goat man for here to suit over in America, because I was writing an American story. So yeah, anyway, it's a bit random, but yeah.
There was a
the goat man yeah.
There was a goat man in Maryland. Literally, it was
Yes.
a satyr, and he had an axe, and he used to pound on cars in Lover's Lane with the axe. And what you get there is you get a mashup of the Hook urban legend, you get the Lover's Lane killer urban legend, you get mythology, you get the satyr, and then you package him as like you package these stories as a Bigfoot. Oh, we saw the goat man. It was a sighting. So that's where you get all these little elements coming together. But goat man, Maryland goat man, just never really caught on. But he was a local legend.
Yeah, but he still exists. That's the thing, and it's just maybe he's just waiting for somebody to tell the right story. That's why this is the point I'm trying to make, is don't discount just because it's not popular or there's a cooler kid down the block. Do you know what I mean? We're horror fans. Are we worried about being the cool kid? When did we start worrying about being the bloody cool kid down the block? Come on. When did that start creeping into the fandom? Let's take we're the anti-cool kid. We always have been. We want to look for the weird stuff and be the weird thing. I don't understand with this idea that we're all, we're now the what do you call it, the Chads and Series or whatever, of the world.
Did you ever see the Buck Rogers episode with the goat man? This from the Gil Gerard Buck Rogers, the second season. It actually was a good episode where he's on a planet with a mother and her son, and the father has become a satyr, and it sounds weird, but it's actually pretty cool. I actually liked it.
Wow.
Actually, one from my local area is Jan's Causeway. Probably if you've ever heard of it. Basically, the story behind it is Finn McCool wanted to have a fight with Ben and Donner, the Scottish Jan. So the Ulster Jan wanted to have a fight, so he built this thing just so go and have a scrap in the middle of the sea. And that's basically the story behind it. It's just two Jans wanted to have a fight, and they come up with this idea of just building the whole landscape just to do it. Which pretty much fits in with our mentality, so I love it. Oh.
Yeah, I always thought the Taniwha head was maybe inspired by eels, because we have heaps of eels in the rivers in New Zealand. Like me and my cousins at the on the farms that go around their farm and go hunt some eels, and you'd get some big ones, man. Over a meter long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eels have been the source of some lake monster sightings.
Yes, serpents.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, who is it? One? The only time I've watched the odd TV show, this guy calls it River Monsters. He's like a professional fisher.
Oh, that's a great show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And
River Monsters.
There's a YouTuber I follow called The Fish Whisperer. And that's the first time I encountered or heard of an alligator gar. And I'm looking at those, I go, bloody hell, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Why aren't they in more stories? There's things out there that are fantastic.
Yeah, it's like a monitor lizard. I mean, like you'll be walking, in Thailand, you'll be walking around and a monitor lizard may just appear because they kind of hide in ponds and lakes, and they're harmless basically, but it's a lizard the size of a dog. So when you're walking around and minding your own business and you just see a lizard that's like 4 feet long, it's scary looking. You'll probably freak out, but yeah. So it's
or even the Asian water monitors. Apparently, there's loads of them about.
Yeah,
they're impressive. I love those.
Yeah, they're really cool. I mean, they are. I mean, like, or you'll see like a really big turtle. Like even when I was back in Jersey last time, like you'd be fishing and you had something to pull on the line, and then you're expecting a fish, and up comes this big turtle that then spits the hook and then
Wow.
zooms.
See,
So that stuff can freak you out.
I've always said this is why I can't be unsupervised, because I just want to go pet the puppy. I don't care if it's got a beak, claws, teeth, or whatever else. It's just a big puppy, and I'm going to go and try and pet it and die.
Wow.
Like, I am one of those idiots that would be in Yellowstone Park and get gored by the buffalo, because I am that stupid.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
Komodo dragons.
I'm that
Komodo
stupid too.
dragons.
I would try and pet one.
Difficult.
I'll not lie, I will try and pet one. If I come across a Komodo dragon, I just see a big scaly puppy and I want to pet it. I think they're gorgeous.
Yeah, and you'll be dead in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's, you know, I do you know what? I wouldn't mind, because I got to pet the puppy.
Bring your hand
Yeah.
sanitizer for afterwards.
Yeah, because of
Yeah.
got actual poison. No, it's not
Poison.
venom, it's poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the
Wow.
bacteria. Yeah, it's they're poisonous, not venomous.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just
Kind of like a
yeah.
Gila monster. You know, that's another puppy I'd pet and probably die from, because yeah.
You ever see the movie The Giant Gila Monster?
Yeah.
That's a cool movie. I used to watch that. That was even as a little kid, I could
Actually, talking about
question the special effects.
go back to the Goat Man. There's a movie I want to do on this channel, and I think I need Chris with me and a couple of years. Billy the Kid. Does any of you remember Billy the Kid?
Heard of it? Can't remember it.
The
No,
world's
of it.
most disgusting family, and yeah, one of them has relations with the goat, and then Billy the Kid's born. It turns out to be a huge. It's bloody. It's
No.
stupid as hell. It is
Oy.
daft as a brush. It really is. But oh my god, it's like 80s glory. Just
Wow.
That sounds awesome.
that's me. I'm Mister. You know, I love my storytelling. I like my cerebral storytelling. I really things all join together. And then one of my favorite movies is Killer Clowns from Outer Space and Billy the Kid. You know, on the other side of the coin, I'm like, sorry.
Good balance. Good balance.
That's it. You need it. Don't you? You just need to like go from one scale to the other and just. I think it's the heart behind them, and that's our thing as well. Like storytelling, like I know you guys have felt it when you submitted the stories in. Was I felt like there was something behind it. I didn't feel like anything was dialed in. You know, that's one thing I really appreciate is you guys. You know, I don't feel like you're just just throw them out. Don't give it to us. It's only Colin. You know, I really do feel that you put heart into the stories.
Yeah, it was
Good.
Hell yeah.
I think a lot of enthusiasm I had was because I got, you know, I haven't really followed cryptids in a long time, but when I was, again, it was scholastic books and a lot of books for young readers back in the late 70s, early 80s was very, very crypto oriented because it sold. So it gave me a chance to go back and revisit some of those earlier reading days, and got to channel into the enthusiasm I had when I was younger, when I was reading about this stuff. And so it's just, I guess the enthusiasm just channels into a better story.
No, I appreciate that. There. So let's give you a chance. Eli, did you encounter any challenges writing your story? Was there a challenge of, you know, how can like when I did my first one, I was going a completely different cryptid. It was a Kelpie I was trying to do. It was a different location, and I could not for the life of me get that bloody story to work. It just wouldn't. It was horrible. Do you ever encounter that when you're trying to put something together? Just, yeah. You and working my way around. Did you have any sort of challenges putting your story together, and how do you overcome them?
I mean, I guess like I came up with the plot device, and then you try to wrap a story around it. And I guess the challenge for me was just choosing the right narrative for it. Like I tried different tenses. I tried a present tense, third person. I tried having more characters involved to make it more of a crew. And then eventually, it's like, okay, I have this situation, this characters in, and then how do where's the story? You know? So yeah, that was probably my third or fourth rewrite, like total, like start to finish. But I really like the idea. But yeah, a lot of times, like I'll start. I have what I call my idea farm, and so like I get a good idea for a story, and I'll just write like a paragraph on it, and maybe I'll get back to that at some point. So that's kind of my just see what's kind of growing in the farm. But yeah, that one was there, and it's just something I just kind of embellished on. So I felt like I didn't want to overcomplicate it with too many characters, and I killed the other character off like right off the bat. So there wasn't a lot of interaction with him and other people. I really wanted to focus on. I don't know. It was just a process of iteration, you know. There were parts of it that weren't-
because sometimes less is more, and I got the character. I don't mean I sort of felt the character, you know, losing their mind as well and not knowing what's happening. Then, like I said, the twist at the end will not do spoilers, obviously, because buy the book, folks, buy it. Join everyone else's planet. But yeah, the twist at the end of what it was all about, and yeah, it was great. But was there a certain point you're like, oh god, not coming together, or did that just flow?
Yeah, and when that happens, I'll usually just throw the baby out with the bathwater and start over. I try not to get too I try not to get married to my story too early, and I guess a lot. I don't know. I guess this is more about process. So a lot of people, they think of their ending, and they kind of work towards that ending, or they write backwards, or however people do that. But like, I think, you know, that twist at the end, that was something I kind of agonized over for a few days. Like, I did not know how to gracefully end that story, and that went through several iterations. But yeah, that one just kind of leapt out at me, and yeah, it worked.
No,
if it hadn't worked, I would have just done something else.
No, it was great to have it on board as well. Like I said, everyone's brought not just the different cryptid, but each one has a different focus and a different feel, and you can you're not just getting the same thing rehashed like 11 times, which once again is fantastic. That's what I feel more excited about this volume, if that makes sense. I know you shouldn't, like, you know, each project's its own thing and you're in its own, but I really felt this one, you know, the sort of each of the characters and the way they came together, and I'm really glad to have like being the focal point to putting this together. What about you, Arthur? Did you have any hurdles when you were did you get a point where like, oh my god, this isn't happening, or
maybe like that that wouldn't be unusual, because sometimes it's just difficult to stay focused on a project. But for this one, it was a little unusual in it wasn't sort of steady. I think I started it around late February, and it did a bit, and the start was really good, and you know I was quite happy with that, and then did a bit more and a bit more as the weeks went by, but it was kind of slow going, and then I got kind of near the end of March, I think. Was that your cutoff, like the 30th?
Yeah, it was the end of March, 30th,
yeah. 31st? Yeah, and I got really close to that, and I thought, damn man, I really want to submit something to Colin, because you know I just really, really wanted to, you know, and I stayed up on the last day of March up until about 2 a.m. or something on April the 1st, and sort of got it all good. And you know, fortunately I didn't have work or any bollocks the next day or anything, so at least I don't think I did. But
he just went through it anyway, just the next day.
Yeah,
is.
Yeah,
we've all been there, haven't we? We've done the all nighter. We're like next day, just.
Yeah, I think I was starting at 11 o'clock in the morning for my shift anyway, so it didn't matter. But yeah, I was working pretty hard on it at that night to get it sort of done in time, you know. But yeah, I was really happy with with how it came out and everything, and no spoilers or anything, but I did sort of agonize a bit over how it was going to end, you know. So, like no spoilers, but the Mothman kind of chasing him, and I wasn't sure about should he try and go back to his village and be safe, or should he run off somewhere else? And yeah, it did agonize a bit over that, but I think it turned
You
out.
dialed it up to 11. I'll give you that. You definitely dialed it up to
Thank
11,
you.
which I appreciated. Dale, did you encounter any sort of blockages or just sort of, no, this isn't happening?
Well, when you announced that it was going to be cryptids, I immediately
What's
chose the
cryptid?
Taniwha, of course, because I wanted to. Yeah, exactly. No, because I wanted to introduce the Taniwha to the world, you know. Well, first of all, I had to ask my ancestors if I could use a Taniwha and could I steal one from Wairoa, because I wanted a female Taniwha, not a male one. So I stole her and put her in Wellington Harbour, but that was okay.
So, quick
I
question. Have you used a
think
similar culture to
Yep.
Native Americans? I know it's particularly Navajo that reciting or writing down of
Very
folklore
much so.
is a taboo because to speak the things, to invoke the thing, or is it a different reason?
It's just a respect thing.
Oh.
It's it's not a curse sort of thing as such. If you don't happen, you know, okay. So I've got a friend. She's a very popular. She's won 7 Bram Stoker awards. She's Lee Murray. I'm not too sure, Guy, if you've probably heard of her or not, but she lives in Tauranga, and she writes predominantly about monsters. But she's part Asian and Kiwi. So she wouldn't have gone through the process of asking, say, ancestors for permission and stuff like that. But I do because I'm Māori, right? So that's why I did it. I just wanted to make sure. And the fact that the story actually finished and I got to finish it and it worked, and as in I didn't have many difficulties. To me, that said that my ancestors were okay with me using a Taniwha and pulling that Taniwha down to Wellington. So that was my initial problem. I think because I don't usually write detective crime stories as such, I didn't want to get too much into police procedures. So I tried to, so I had a whole lot of editing and condensing to go into this because I didn't want it to be predominantly about the police procedures and that sort of stuff. But so it was a bit touch and go trying to get the characters together. I also wanted to put a little bit of humor in there, so I made sure that the female cop had a little bit of an attitude, you know, a Kiwi attitude, to fit with the Kiwi lingo sort of thing. So all in all, it really worked out really well. I wrote this story quite fast, but then it took a lot of revision to get it to where it is submittable for you. Because I've got like a backload of stories, right? And I could just use any story I want in any of your anthologies, but I'm not going to do that. I do a new one for every single anthology for you. And I do that out of respect for you. And I do it because I want your book to be different than what I've added into other people's anthologies. So that's why I take a lot more care when I'm doing stories for your. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's all right. I just think that you deserve to have a lot of good stories, wonderful stories, as opposed to just good stories. So if I felt good that I gave 100% over, and I hope that translated into the story. So,
Like
you know,
I said,
there's always
I'm
that
really
thing at the
blown
end
away
where
by
you're
this
like, oh,
volume and all of
God,
you that
did
put
I
in the
miss something?
stories. I felt like you cared. That was the thing. That's
Awesome.
what got me. I
Yeah.
felt like you weren't like, nah, it's only Colin there. I'll just throw us that. Most of use that for anything anyway. Here you go. You know, I didn't get that impression at all, which is makes me really happy. It makes me feel like I'm doing something worthwhile as well.
I think when I did mine, I was also writing
I
a
think
love
when it's
letter
a
to
friend,
I was like writing a love letter to the state of New Jersey because it's such a strange state. There's a magazine called Weird New Jersey, and they tried to. I think you could try to do Weird Maryland or Weird Pennsylvania, but it won't click like New Jersey, because New Jersey has such a uniqueness to it. One of the things about Jersey is that it has a lot of abandoned establishments, and they remain abandoned. Unlike other areas, like if a restaurant goes out of business, it's sold and they bulldoze it and they do something else. In New Jersey, you will see restaurants that closed down 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they're still standing like a
Wow.
ghost town relic.
oh,
And I remember I think that's mainly because sometimes you might have like a restaurant and there's nothing next to it because it's a lot of highway, a lot of forests, a lot of ocean and all that. So buying it, if you bought it, what are you going to redevelop it into? So because it's not, sometimes it's kind of remote. So you have like abandoned, well, in my story, it's a mental asylum, but you have, like, I remember as a little kid, there back in the 60s, there was a very popular lake that, people would go in the summer, they go swimming in the lake. Well, it closed down, but elements of it stood for like decades, and you had like the lifeguard stand, and over the years it would tilt, and it had like this creepy, because when you would drive by and you would pass an abandoned drive-in movie theater, and then you would get to the abandoned lake resort, and you'd look and you'd just see that remnant from many years ago just tilted, like it was almost getting ready to
wow.
sink under. It had like that creepy look to it. And when you would pass by the drive-in movie theaters, and you could still, because they were still around because they were using them as flea markets.
Mm-hmm.
But they never took the screen down, and they would never remove the old concession stand. And you still could see where they would put the tables, where you would still have the parking spots, and maybe some of the stands where you had the audio things you would hook up to your window until, because then later on it became AM frequency. But it would be like that you had so many of these abandoned old restaurants and this, that, and the other thing, and it just made it really, really creepy backdrop. And then the weirdness factor came in because that very, most of your Jersey Devil sightings were people impaired, and they would whatever would happen to them, they would blame it on the Jersey Devil, and they would tell their crazy stories about how I bumped into the Jersey Devil, and they give you this story, and you're saying to yourself, dude, that was not the Jersey Devil, that was like that was a goat, or that was a cow or something.
That was the result of your little baggie you had, that you shouldn't have, you silly sausage.
So yeah, so I kind of like tying that weirdness into it. So it kind of became my little love story of the state of New Jersey.
Did you reach a point like saying, nah,
No.
not happening, or twisting your head in it, or did it flow?
Yeah, it was uneven, because when I started out, I was thinking abandoned asylums and abandoned structures, and I was thinking the Jersey Devil, the satanic element of it, because again, the origin, it's the devil, in the early origin. But then I started, thinking to myself, as I was researching old New Jersey myths, they started talking about Big Red Eye, which was the name they gave to their Bigfoot. And the idea of America does not have any primates. I mean, there's no orangutans or any of this. So the idea of a Bigfoot is pretty implausible. And a Bigfoot in New Jersey is utterly absurd. It's so silly. It's not exactly a landscape that's good for primates. It's just too goofy. So when I started thinking about it, I said to myself, you know what? this is really hard. It's hard to get all of this across to somebody not from New Jersey, because it seems like there's just too much and too small of an area, between Satanism and ghost towns and strange mysterious creatures from the 19th century and misplaced Bigfoot monsters and all this. So as I was writing it, I said to myself, I can't do it seriously. It's too absurd. So you kind of got to go more in a satirical direction. So that was kind of the stumbling block, because it wasn't working serious. So I went back and I said, you know what, I'm just going to write this in the first person, and I'm going to tell it like the way these guys told these stories in a bar, just rambling on about very implausible situations that it makes sense to them, and you're sitting there going, what, and then but trying to make that logical. So, but doing it in a more humorous vein. Logic's not as important, because you're kind of getting it across more as absurdity.
But it worked because you made it real. Sorry, Eli, did I jump in there and stop you? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say for Anthony's story, I read your story the way that like Steve Buscemi tells the story in Desperado about Elle.
Yeah,
like it was like that kind of. It was one person telling this animated story to somebody else, and it felt very natural. I liked it.
Yeah, it's like sitting in a bar and you're sitting there listening to this really ridiculous story, and you're going, because you don't want to walk away and you don't want to insult the person, but you're saying, I'm talking to a screwball. You're like, So I try to get that across.
Don't give him your number. Don't let him follow you home.
That is your first person Jersey Devil story. Anytime I ever met somebody and rambling on about the Jersey Devil, it was usually something happened to them and they couldn't make sense out of it, so they inserted the Jersey Devil into the story to try to make sense out of it. It's like, okay, great, cool, good for you.
Does it also function as a cover for like somebody got drunk and smashed up their car or something like that, and they blame it on the devil, that kind of thing?
That sounds like it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like I said, I told you about the first one. Then when I went into the story, my problem is, not just Northern Ireland, but the British Isles are tiny, in comparison to the rest of the world. We don't have, and Northern Ireland is even smaller. Like England, you still got, and Scotland are quite large land masses, and they're still quite large areas like the Bournemouth marshes. You've got the Highlands. You have loads of places you can actually get lost in still. Northern Ireland, not so much. It's a blip on the map, if you look, and you don't have the wide ranging expanses of forest. Now, still got forest and all, but not the wide ranging expanses where you get lost for days or weeks. And we effectively have a paramilitary police force. Still, they don't just have sidearms. They have the Gorilla MP5s and armored Land Rovers and all the top technology, and you still got MI5. Has a permanent base. So you've like James Bond's running about all over the place and stuff. As part of normal life. So my thing is, how the hell do you tell a story with something that can't be seen in such a small geography, and with even from the 70s, like the best of technology and communication and sneaky beaky stuff. Like most of the world's sneaky beaky stuff was pioneered in Northern Ireland, funnily enough, during the conflict. So all that stuff, and that was brought into everything else. So like, how the hell can a creature hide when you flipping? There's always an OP set up somewhere with somebody looking at somebody else through binoculars every square mile in the country. Do you know what I mean? So that was my sort of thing. How do I make this? And then I started looking at like pagan rituals and stuff, and then thinking about the solstices and phase. I'm thinking, hold on, the whole idea of the solstices, the phase of the moon turns, and then things become slightly different in the world, like worlds merge, almost like they always said about alternate universes or
dimensions,
extra dimensions. So I sort of went along that line of oh yes, that's. Because I had the beginning, I had the end. It was actually the middle part for me was like the real struggle of how do I make this happen? and be plausible and not be really, really stupid. And the Gruak's like it's an amalgamate. It's something like a breed between a werewolf and Bigfoot. You know, but it's normal human size, but they go around in packs. So it's slightly, slightly different again. But it's like, how the hell could these creatures exist that they've been scoped? There's patrols like on a regular basis all over the countryside, and not just that there, but like kind of like loads of military bases, like, and there's normal training and stuff happens as well as like the actual real life stuff. So there's and hikers and everything. There's no way that
You couldn't get
anything
away.
can
Yeah.
exist. So that's where I had to sort of twist my brain and go, right, I want to make this work. And I don't want to just go and do a large mass country. I feel like it would be cheating. Like if I did an American one, I feel like I would just jumping on popular culture and cheating and not making it local. So that's where I kind of, how do I make this happen? So
True.
I think I did okay, using that. And they're sort of based on real life cairns and like the giant ring. I mean, they're sort of based in like pagan structures that they're still there. I just give it a wee twist, and certain times a year it becomes visible and the worlds collide, and that's how I got around it. But I was having a tough time, like
Awesome.
just finding the right cryptid to begin with, because I wanted it to be local. I was very adamant about that, because I think that was sort of the theme. Everyone's able to bring something local to the table, and if I didn't, I feel like I would be cheating.
I really enjoyed your one, Colin.
Fair enough.
I thought it was cool.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah, I think the thing that pushes cryptids is the local element to them. I think that's a little bit lost today, but back in the heyday, I consider the heyday would be like 1955-ish to like 83-ish. They were local stories and local legends, and even as a little like when I would buy collections, both then and now, very local. Goatman, Maryland; Mothman, West Virginia; Dogman, Michigan. So that's just an extension of all kinds of mysterious tales and local legends and folklore and urban legends. Vampirism, is very, very local in its own way. It's kind of, in that Transylvania, Romania, I wouldn't say the origins, because the vampires,
There's always been some sort of, but the actual, legends sort of Eastern European, and
but the tropes come from that Eastern European area, and it remains very, even when it expands. Like even if you go watch a movie like Count Yorga, set in Los Angeles, it still adheres to those tropes from the Eastern European legends. So superstition, folklore, and all that, it just has a local flair, I think, because it starts up as passionate retellings of stories that are catered to a local area.
I just think that there's still a market for that. There's still a reason to celebrate that. I don't think I just don't want this homogenization. I don't want everything to be beige. I'm sick of this. Everything has to be corporate, just blandness, and everybody speaks the same, and everyone has the same. TikTok, like the TikTok voice winds me up. The robot voice, everyone's expected now to speak like that, and that there's no flavor, no interest. How would the world be interesting if everyone's all the same? Like, even that's the whole point of neighborhoods and that. And I just
boring.
Yeah, like sometimes what I'll click on a history piece on YouTube, and within 2 minutes or 2 seconds, it's pretty obvious that this was that somebody's plugging in an AI program and saying, "Give me a script on the subject of the barbarians sacking Rome," and it'll give you a 5-minute script, and then they feed the script to an AI narrator, and you get very bland, generic story that doesn't have a lot of passion to it. But when somebody's really into the story they want to tell, and especially if it's a story that is from where they grew up, it's going to boost their passion, and that'll come through.
Mhm.
And then but if you're trying to draw a huge audience, one of those AI YouTube videos can do pretty, you pick a general topic and it'll give you a very generic script. And sadly that clickbait wise, it will, it's bland and it's generic, and that kind of expands its audience. Might not keep the audience.
I'd rather not be generic and bland. Thank you very much. I don't care if the masses. I mean, like the masses have never interested me because I've nothing in common. I'm a nerd. I like weird stuff. I like being weird.
Yeah,
I've always
too.
enjoyed the darker side of things. My sense of humor. Like, I forget myself because I spend so much time on this talking to people like yourselves that when I encounter a normie and I just go my normal sense of humor, it's like, oh, and I go, oops. Oh, wrong
Did
audience.
you say that out loud?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Like, at least I didn't say the other 10 things I was thinking. Should already blurt out here.
yeah.
One of my friends plays drums in a band called Looking for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Sometimes they get
really?
If you see him, on the music scene around here, check him out. Yeah, sort of, good rock band.
Look.
Yeah, and they get a dude, one of their mates, to dress up in a Bigfoot costume and goes on stage and starts doing his dance moves and stuff. So,
brilliant!
A couple of this time.
Oh, and he gets some. They think to put their stuff online, do they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right. You need to
look it
up. Get a link, stick it in the description of this video so people can have a crack on it.
I'll try to find him. Yeah,
that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Oh, do you remember that band that they all dress like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons?
Oh yeah.
But their music is awful. It was a cool concept, but their music is just like bland as hell. Oakley Dokley, they call themselves, and that's right, Oakley Dokley. That's a great concept, but they just they don't have the musical ability, or they're not like Psycho Stick or anything that really make it happen, or Electric Callboy. They're just they had a gimmick, but they didn't put it through.
It's like Kiss. Like, their music's not that great, but they have a wonderful sort of theatricality about them that's what people want to go see.
When a band can sell string guitars and people will buy it, that's all you have to say about Kiss. Like, when you talk about marketing. Oh, legit, you see the thing that's empty, string guitar, it's just an empty package. And people, one of their best sellers, you're like, use one. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You just go, use one everything. They know how to play they know what their audience are. The audience want it, and everyone's in on the joke.
Yeah. Kiss did their big farewell tour. Now they're back in Vegas. They're going to do a convention and a concert in Vegas, and everybody's like, "Well, you didn't say you did a farewell tour." It's like, "Well, this isn't a tour. It's just a one-off, and we're not wearing makeup, yada yada yada." And
wow.
They're back.
Wow.
They'll do it till they die. It's just it's in their it's in their blood. Some people like that's. When you see actors as well, those still are acting in their 90s. They're never going to stop. They don't know what to do with themselves.
I read that when they announced the tickets for the convention, there was a huge boost of sales came, like ticket buys in at the beginning, and then they slowed down. So that's a case where you just have like a really dedicated following that just has to have everything Kiss related, and boom, they buy, and then so they can sell half their capacity like overnight, and then the other half it might be a little slower, but they've been around 50 years, so they got a following.
Yeah, that's it. We'll have going to the Run for Your Lives tour in 6 weeks' time. You know, Iron Maiden's 50th anniversary concert. You know what I mean? Straight away, as soon as the tickets went out, I got them.
Wow.
I'm one of those people. You know, I can't argue.
I think one of the coolest ideas for a book just came out, and I got to get a copy. I don't remember the name of the book, but I got to look it up. But it's basically about kissploitation in movies and TV. So basically, it's a record of all the episodes on like shows like Chips or Incredible Hulk or Scooby Doo or whatever, where you have like characters that are like Gene Simmons or Kiss inspired, that you know, it's Kiss but not Kiss. So, you know, trying to cash in on the popularity. So that's, to me, that's a funky idea for a book. It'll probably sell really, really well because it's so cool.
Yeah, I could see that actually. It's just that, you know, it's also everyone's in the joke. That's the thing. On the other side though, flipping Ozzy Osbourne's ticket sales went down a hill because everyone got annoyed with him. Because he's obviously trying to make enough money in this farewell tour to retire, and yeah, everyone's just like, nah, mate, you're done.
Yeah, he was doing autograph signings for like $666 an autograph or something like that. You know, it's
Wow.
just
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe, man, Black Sabbath are playing this year and it's on my birthday. Their
Wow.
final gig, July the 5th in Aston.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I was kind of on the fence about going, but it's so freaking far. And just,
Yeah, it's almost like an expedition in itself.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, just to wrap up, most importantly, never mind what the big stars are doing. What are our stars here? What's next down the pipeline? What have you got up and coming? We'll do the start with Eli and then work our way around. Anything interesting coming up next?
Well, I'm always working on something. I'm actually working on maybe an epic novel. It is about, it's speculative fiction, so not horror. As much as I love to write horror, I like to dabble in other elements. And the premise of this one is basically, what are the long-term effects of our current trajectory in technology and sort of like transference. So I read this article about Ray Kurzweil, and I think there's a movie about it where, starring Johnny Depp, where he transfers his consciousness into a machine.
Oh God, yes, that was a terrible movie.
Yeah, so there's a real guy.
That was a stinker.
Yeah, and well, I didn't see the movie.
I did.
Yeah,
sorry. It was a good premise, but it just didn't work.
So I'm thinking about the people who can afford this procedure, this process of becoming immortal by becoming a machine. That they think that they can transfer their consciousness into a machine. Maybe it doesn't work out the way that they hope, and instead become a clone. And so plan B is to sort of incorporate their physical form into a machine. And the type of people that would want to do this are inherently megalomaniacal. And so they grow, they get bigger, they build onto themselves, and eventually they become these like city-sized organisms. And those organisms are teaming with human beings. And so they're basically, they serve a singular purpose. So my main character's name is Analog Wrench.
Mm-hmm.
And all he does is wrench things. A loose bolt somewhere, and that's what he does. That's all he does, and that's all he knows. Until there's a inciting incident that sort of expands his worldview. And so, yeah, this takes place, I want to say several thousand years into the future. And basically the Earth is just occupied by these colossi, individuals that have basically strip mined the planet of natural resources and have expanded beyond the atmosphere even, and one of them has even created a Dyson sphere around the sun. Yeah, it's a large concept that I'm still kind of like guiding this little character through, and yeah, I'm about 40,000 words into it already, so it's very ambitious.
Wow.
No, it's yeah, that's one of the take over Life of His Own. Sounds like the Titans out of 40K.
Yeah,
If you're familiar with that.
yeah, I've kind of bounced the idea off of people, and it sort of invokes like references. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a combination of maybe like my inspiration for it is a little bit on Neil Stevenson, maybe a little bit of Frank Herbert. I don't know.
I could see that there. The sort of that's what more than the storytelling itself with Frank Herbert stuff. The idea of people being effectively biological weapons, I was always fascinated with. It's just that he was doing too many drugs when he was writing because he jumps like two stories in a row. Then he jumps 11 years. Then he jumps 5,000 years. Then he jumps 20,000 years. And like, mate, what the hell?
Yeah. I recently finished reading Neil Stephenson's Seven Eves. It posits what would happen if the moon exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah!
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and all the it takes a very hard scientific line through it. So there's no like I don't know. There's not a lot of like speculation in terms of like what caused it, and it's all them sort of like solving the problem of what to do now and to survive. And so like there's a big like half the book is basically the situation at hand, and then it jumps into the future 5,000 years. There's a big break, and then it tells you like kind of what happened afterwards and how they eventually mythologize the original people who survived the whole ordeal. And then all kinds of other fun things happen. But I don't know, like, yeah, that level of speculative fiction is just so it's cool, but there was, I would say I was a little disappointed because there wasn't like an explanation, you know.
It's always
It still makes me think about it, which makes it great, I think.
There's something about things being lost in the midst of time and people just do things because, and then it's sort of the getting little snippets of why and maybe a previous event, but it's not uncovered. But you know, it's also when you're in the moment with certain characters, as long as you're there and you feel engaged, and it's not too cerebral, as in, oh, this is a thought project rather than a story, that it'll work. That's what I find anyway. Stories like that, like I said with Herbert, for example, the whole Dune series. It was actually one of the few books where the concept of the world was more interesting than the characters. It was actually the stuff behind the actual story with Dune, and more so, even children. It really kicks off Children of Dune, than anything else. The idea behind it, and humans basically being biological weapons of various things, and all stemming. You start asking about the Butlerian Jihad and what that was about, and why thinking machines were bad. And you'd never get the full story till later on as Christopher Herbert takes over. But it was always in the back of your mind. What was so bad about the thinking machines? What happened? And it's always hinted at throughout the thing. So if you've got that, but as long as the story's engaging, yeah, you can do that without explaining it. It's just something that happened, and this is the fallout. So I could see it working.
Yeah.
He never gives you a reason to sort of sympathize with any of his characters.
No, and that was his thing. It was, it's like George R. Martin, complete nihilism, and that can only go so far. But once you forgo the hero's journey, which is the basis, you have to have some element of the hero's journey. Once you leave that, there's a reason why it's a standard for storytelling. Once you forget that, then and it doesn't have to be it could be one hero's sacrifice.
Yeah,
encourages the next hero, but it's still the hero's journey. Somebody has to pick up the torch and go and fight the entity, the evil. everyone that's tried to forgo that and leave that fault behind has failed. It gets so far, but then there's no conclusion, there's no wrapping up, there's no end of that particular tale, even if the universe goes on. But yeah, Herbert and are the two biggest culprits for that. Hence why he's hiding under a rock right now and we'll never see Winds of Winter. Not that I care. But, you know, I feel sorry for George R. R. Martin fans, like who still believe. It's like, sorry, folks, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But,
No, I think he's it's a wise choice. He's gotten himself painted into a corner by HBO, and yeah, it's probably just a dead horse at this point.
yeah, and his pride won't let him admit it.
I think that the last Game of Thrones book he wrote, it kind of disappointed readers. So maybe he's a little bit concerned about making the next volume.
I think
really
as well,
good.
it was his idea. That's what he wanted.
Mhm.
And he saw the reaction. He went, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
but he can't admit it. He can't.
Yeah, he tried focusing on minor characters, and it didn't work. And there's a reason why minor characters are minor characters. So maybe it hurt his confidence, and he's probably over analyzing or second guessing himself. Trying
The
to write
chapter that
a new volume.
the chapter that finished me off was when who'd you call her, Esme, or you know, the Fire Witch?
Mm-hmm.
Got the her chapter. She's only one
Oh.
chapter, right? And I finally got that chapter. Man, okay, what's this bitch up to? What's her plan? She gazes into the fires and then goes to bed. I'm like, what? Oh, fuck off. Fuck right off, you bastard. Fucking doof. That was it. Done. Fuck you, George Martin. You cunt. Fucking
Did anybody read Wild Cards?
And it was
Wild-
that actual, you bastard, you know, because he, even in the books before the series, like, you know what I mean? Her character is built up as being this entity and then got to her chapter. Right, now we get to see what she's up to. Oh, right. Okay, so you're doing this, right?
Does anybody remember his Wild Card series?
I remember Beauty and the Beast. That was freaking tragic.
I like that show.
Harlan
My mom
and
liked
Linda
that
Hamilton.
show. That was
He
cool
used to
stuff.
write. He wrote some short stories back in the day, like back in years ago. I don't know, the 70s or 80s or something.
Wild Cards was kind of like his version. He didn't write all of them. I think that was an anthology collection, but it ran. I'm going back. I haven't read it in a long time, but Wild Cards was basically sort of a variation on the Watchmen. You know, like superheroes in real life, and it's really, really, really good. I remember I read the first volume and it blew me away. So, but that was long running, and then I think, well, I don't know what they're doing with Wild Cards anymore. You'd think they'd do a TV series because Game of Thrones did so well. But I think there was a comic book for Wild Cards, but yeah, those are really cool if you like superheroes and fantasy and sci-fi. No.
Done that for over 10, 20 years now. Like,
oh, wow.
I'm over superheroes. Well over them. No interest. The thing I hate about comic books as well, they can't kill off characters.
Yeah.
Just kill a character, make it mean something. Don't bring them back.
Yeah, they ruined the Green Goblin and Elektra story. Those were classic storylines where they met their demise and they brought them back.
Yeah,
and it kind of diminished everything.
So who cares? You know, if you don't care, I'm not going to care. Anyway, Dale, what are you up to?
Oh, bloody hell. So I'm busy writing stories for you. I am working on my own anthologies of horror. So I'm going to have about 10 stories and somebody very amazing is going to publish it for me. And
Are we talking about that? Are we keeping that under wraps or are we letting that out yet? That's sort of...
Oh, we can let that out. That's
Yeah,
up to you. Yeah. Yes. No. Colin. Yep. No. We're Colin and I are working on my. Go for it.
we haven't got a title yet.
Colin.
We're basing it on Mistress of the Dark, that sort of vibe
Oh,
and
yes.
so forth. But it's going to be Dale's collection of short stories. So we've started the early phases and
Yeah.
just getting the theme of it, isn't it? It's just what it's going to look
It'll
like.
be
It's
my
not just going to be a bunch of stories rammed together. Want to have a certain look and feel and vibe. And then I think we're
yeah.
looking at the moment the first 3 stories and then tweaking it so you get a flavor.
Yep.
Because I hate anthologies are just
yeah.
thrown together.
Hmm.
I think I like a theme. I like
Yes.
a sort of
No.
joining sort
They
of
work
thread that
better.
connects them all. So you're not quite reading a novel,
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
reading an individual collection,
Yeah.
individualized for that. So that's my
Yeah.
whole thing. So that's what we're working on at the moment. It's harder than you think, isn't it?
Oh, it is, isn't it? It is. It's especially trying to pick which ones, and then writing new ones, and it's like, oh gosh.
And it's the tweaking to get it the same,
But it's
the
an
vibe that's
interesting
going to run
journey.
without ruining the stories that are
Yes.
there and making them same. So we're working on that at the moment.
Yes,
So that'll
exactly.
be,
Yeah, but with your advice, we'll get it.
Awesome.
With your expertise, we'll get it. Yeah. Yeah. So if you've got that, I'm also working along. I'm working on a biography of a filmmaker who lives in the UK. He's Italian, Guerrilla Metropolitana. So I'm going to have that up probably at the end of this year, maybe. A big book. And it's going to be controversial and it's going to be fucking crazy. So, yeah, there's a lot of images in there that are going to
that's going to
either
have
make
all the
me
little,
or break
that's the
me.
little boxes that are going to be ticked. Does this contain? Yes, it fucking does. And then some.
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And then should it come in cling wrap? Yes, possibly with an R18++ rating. Yep. So I'm doing that as well as just more reviews with Colin. Yeah, which we do, reviews every couple of weeks. So I love doing those. Still running my Horror Central group, which has got 44,000 people now, which is really good. So there's a lot of people for me to share my projects with, which I also share everybody else's projects to the group as well. So yeah, so that's just keeping that on top of, and basically I think that's it.
You're still interviewing
I
people,
had a
aren't you?
film just come out recently, had a short. Yes, I've still got to interview some more people, and I've got to do some interviews as well. I'm going to be interviewed as well, and I'm doing some interviews. So Undying Love came out, and I wrote that, but a friend of mine filmed it. So he turned Undying Love, a short story about vampires, into a short film, 9-minute short indie film. So that's got a lot of views. That's working out all right. We might put it through the festival circuit, see if we can get some awards. Other than that, I think we might be working on a part 2 because people want to know what happens afterwards. Because it was kind of a teaser. I think that's about it. No, there's probably
So you're not
more.
busy?
So yeah, no, not at all. Yeah. Lucky I'm a stay-at-home mum. So, I get all this time to write and do all my stuff. So yeah, that's about what I'm up to this year. But lots of interviews and lots of podcasts coming up. So
Excellent.
yeah, that's all
Tony?
good. Yeah.
Whew, I got something new coming out, probably June. It will be my cyberpunk collection, which is it's kind of cool because it's a not disparate stories. They're stories that are kind of interwoven together, and they're not short stories. They're novellas. So it's probably about 3 or 4. As my cat, he's got to interject. So it's going to be a collection of cyberpunk, which is a mix of the high-tech, low-life world of the future, with heavily influenced by Generation X culture, with a lot of film noir and hard-boiled crime weaved in. So it should be really I shouldn't say it's a departure from what I normally do, because I've been doing a lot of my last two book releases were horror books, but I had been writing science fiction previously for I think my first, actually, yeah, the one of the novellas in there was already published, but I pulled it because I want to put it into the collection. So this will be my my pay on to the 90s sci-fi genre, and a little bit of the 1940s and 1950s, both in hard-boiled crime fiction and film noir movies. So I kind of weave a lot of that together. So it should be something I'm really looking forward to releasing, and I think people will really dig it once it comes out.
Oh, cool, man. Looking forward to it. And last but not least,
Awesome.
what you got coming up, man?
So I've been working for a while now on my second collection. The theme is sort of around despair and isolation, stuff like that. So I've got sort of stories from everything that's sort of not begun yet, stories that are still just in my head, to a few that are completely finished. There's one up on my Substack, but my Substack is my sort of real name, which is Guy PD Armstrong at substack.com. There's a lot of political stuff on there, so I always do that in my spare time as well. But there's a section in there called Arthur L. Horror Stories, which is one of these stories is on there. It's called There's Nothing Worth Living For. So it's sort of sets the mood,
Wow.
But
Yeah.
So
That's
it's sort of about
Wow.
life and depression and stuff like that.
Well, sometimes the best way to deal with that is to actually just you can't
Sounds
stay in the beast
interesting.
unless you name it. So sometimes just channel it
Write
and be
about
something
it.
creative. I don't believe
Absolutely.
it's wallowing. I don't like people that wallow. I'd never achieve anything.
It's not
But
healthy.
channeling, if you've got negative emotions as much as positive, channel it into something. At least you're doing something with it and not letting it own you.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
My poetry collection was like that. I was in a shitty headspace at the time. I put that out. But doing it actually just got me, stopped me from self-deleting. That makes sense, because I was just sick of the world, sick of everything in it, and sick of the pattern repeating. I just saw it, so I just put that all into, a little book of poetry, and I felt, funny enough, I've never felt the need to do another one. Do you know when you get something out of your system?
Yeah,
it goes, and you're like,
oh.
20 years from now, you probably do another one.
Yeah, that's a 20-year break in between them's all right. But when you're feeling that every day, do you know when you're feeling it every day, and then you don't know where to go, and you put it into something? So I can see the same with just nihilism and despair, and just thinking, what's the point? Take that and put it in, and all of a sudden, oh, there's the point. I've made something. It's not so bad, Crack on.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a happy note.
Writing horror is so awesome for that, though, isn't it? It lets your dark side out without hurting other people or hurting yourself, which is, I think that channeling it into a really horrifying, horrific story, which you're going to see in the serial killer one, just harnessing that darkness, accepting it for what it is, and doing something positive with it, and especially for people who have mental illness and depression and all that sort of stuff. It's like writing a journal, but it's not. It's like writing a completely fictional journal. That you know what I mean? It's cathartic. I know
with
people
horror,
say, "How can horror be cathartic?" But
what's the worst that can happen? With horror, you go there. Okay, what is the word? I'm trying to find what the worst that can happen, and you go to that place. All right, that's what it is. Okay, and then you look back and you go, "Well, I'm not there yet. That's actually about 20 steps down the line. I'm actually here, so I'm all right." And it just lifts. That's what I enjoy.
100%.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
There you go. Obviously, don't forget, folks, follow all our authors, and thanks for being able to make it. For those that can't make it, obviously, their works, if you pick up Volume 2, as Dale said, I've got the wee QR code, which I'm glad I just experiment with an idea, thinking of physical media, and everyone's got their phone, so I thought that'd be a cool wee thing just to let people
Brilliant.
immediately be able to check who they're looking at. So glad you like that. But yeah, pick up Horrific Tales Volume 2. I really enjoyed putting this one together. And get ready for some serial killers. Ha
Yay!
There you go, folks. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And just easy to say, until next time, go update the channel, do the type of tricky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.